My name is Becca Scully. I'm the project lead for MonitoringResources.org here at the Pacific Northwest Aquatic Monitoring Partnership. And today we're going to talk about managing sites with user sample files and master samples. Some of the goals of today's webinar are to introduce you to MonitoringResources.org, have an introduction to MonitoringResources.org design web tools, and give you some details about master sample, library, and the user sample file. So to start off with, I just want to give you a little bit of history and background on PNAMP. I work for PNAMP, the Pacific Northwest Aquatic Monitoring Partnership, and what we do is we provide a forum to enhance the capacity of multiple entities to collaborate, and we do that in a couple different ways. One way is that we bring people together. We have a series of working groups and workshops where we get people in the Pacific Northwest together to understand how people are doing certain types of sampling and solve common problems. And another way that we are seeking to help people collaborate is through a suite of web tools. And what the web tools are a way to guide users through the documentation process associated with the data lifecycle. We've built infrastructure to support coordination and collaboration of monitoring. We have tools that support planning for data collection analysis, tools that support acquiring, processing, analyzing, publishing, and sharing, and so on. And our main focus is on description and describing information and making documentation of metadata easier. How we've done this is we've built a suite of web tools called MonitoringResources.org. And you can go to MonitoringResources.org. It's www.monitoringresources.org. And what MonitoringResources.org does, so what does it do and how does it help you? It's a metadata database. It helps you understand who's doing what, where, when, and how. So what else does it do? It also supports an online system for project design and documentation of design. It has ways and processes by which you can add information, you can create consistent metadata, and then you can also design and document your design of a project. There's also some other great functionality built into Monitoring Resources. Like I said, it supports project planning and implementation and reporting. It promotes common terminology. There's a glossary by which you can understand how people are defining certain terms associated with monitoring and data collection, information analysis. It promotes thorough, consistent documentation of methods, protocols, study designs associated with data collection and analysis. And today we're going to focus on the study design piece. It also promotes transparency and accountability. It allows you to see who else is working on the landscape, what they're doing, how they're doing it, and where they're doing it. And by doing this, it facilitates collaboration. It allows you to say, okay, I'm working here, I'm collecting this information, and that's great. But oh, look, Joe or Frank is working right next door, and he's collecting a different piece of information, and I could use that. So that allows you to see who's doing what, where, when, and how to promote this sort of collaboration. It also facilitates data coordination and sharing. And this is done by the creation of consistent metadata. So everyone has the same type of documentation. Is all publicly accessible. People can see, again, who's doing what, where, when, and how, and they can understand how their information might be able to be combined and coordinated and shared. It's a pretty powerful suite of tools, and how we do that is we walk users through the process of documenting each of these pieces. We have tools that help people and support them in documenting objectives. So why am I going somewhere? What is my objective, my study plan? We have tools that support people documenting their methods and protocols. So methods and protocols are what you plan on collecting it, how you plan on collecting it, and so on. We have tools that help you document your temporal and spatial design. So it walks you through the process of again, documenting that. We have some tools that help you understand and implement your study design and your methods and protocols. Ways to export information from this online system to your own data management system to support the implementation. We also have tools that support reporting back after data collection has happened. So you can come in here and you can say, okay, I've collected data at my locations and here's what happened. And we also have tools that support discovery. And that really is the support of understanding and seeing who did what, where, when, and how. So we have an online map viewer that shows multiple programs, information on one consistent central source. Tools we're going to focus on today are the tools to support documentation of your temporal and spatial design. And to do that, it's a multi-step process. Actually, the webinar you're hearing today goes in conjunction with the webinar that we'll be doing in July. So what we're going to cover today is we're going to cover the process of defining a population. So to document your temporal and spatial design, you first need to start with a set of sites. Those are the full list of sites where you could plan on sampling over your study time frame. And then you need to select which sites are going to be sampled when, and you need to define your temporal framework. So that's the process you need to get to document your temporal and spatial design. And what we've done is we built tools to define your population. We have 2 separate tools that you can use to figure out where your full population of sites that you might be sampling, or add your own sites that you might be planning on sampling. We've also built a tool to help you select sites and define your temporal framework, and that all feeds into the full documentation of your temporal and spatial design. So by using each of these tools in an integrated way, you can get to a complete documentation of your study design that is published online. It can be shared with others through a URL. It has all the associated metadata and can be used by yourself and other people in the future to understand where you sampled, why you sampled there, and when you sampled there, which is really valuable when you're starting to think about analyzing data. So that's the full process. But today we're just going to focus on defining the population. So talking about uploading and sharing your sites and the metadata associated with your sites that you plan on sampling over the full sample time frame. We're going to talk about the tools to support managing site data. So we do that in 2 different ways. MonitoringResources.org supports managing sites and metadata in 2 ways. We have a master sample approach, and we have a way that you as a user can upload your own shapefile. And I'm going to start by talking about the master sample approach and the tools we have to support this approach to defining populations and sites associated with your sampling. Let's start off with a couple of definitions. Master sample. Master sample is a full list of sites that would be sampled in a complete census. This list is used to generate a spatially balanced random selection of sites. So the master sample concept is something that's been around for a while. It began to be applied to aquatic resources in 2008-ish by Larson, Olson, and Stevens. You can see there's a citation here for a paper, and this sort of details this master sample approach and its use on aquatic resources. And the idea is that you can create a full list of sites that you'd want to sample on a landscape. So for example, if you're sampling streams, you'd say, okay, I want to sample every 100 meters across all of Idaho, and you would put on a site out every 100 meters. But you don't have the resources to sample every single site in all of Idaho on every 100-meter stream. So you need to somehow divide that master list, or as they've termed it, a master sample, up into a smaller section of representative sites that you can sample to get an inference on the full sample population. So what they've done is they've applied the GRITS random tessellation stratification algorithm to a master sample called GRITS. And what GRITS does is it's an algorithm that stratifies sites so you can get a spatially balanced random selection of sites from your master sample. So again, this is described in the Stevens et al. Paper, and you can see the details there. But the idea is basically you have this full population of sites. You do not have the resources to sample every single site, but you do want to make some sort of inference. So the GRITS algorithm helps you select sites from the master sample, so they're spatially balanced, probabilistic, and across the full landscape. So why do this? Why would people do this? And why is it important to share these master samples on monitoring resources so multiple people can use this? So the benefit of the master sample design approach is that it increases efficiency and standardization of sample design. So you can have multiple different entities, organizations, jurisdictions that are selecting from the same master list. And then once you've selected from that, and you know how people selected from that, you can then bring that information back together. So everyone takes their own small piece of the puzzle and then put it back together to make a bigger picture. It creates an easier and more defensible estimate of resource conditions across the spatial scale. Again, everyone has their own small piece of the puzzle based on their jurisdiction and their need, and you know that, and when you're doing the analysis, you can pull information back. So if this is something that you're interested in and you want to use the master sample approach, how would you do that, and how would Monitoring Resources help you? So there's multiple different questions that might come up if you're trying to use a master sample in MonitoringResources.org, or you're trying to use a master sample in general. So first you'd want to know what master samples exist, because the idea is that as a user would select sites from an existing master sample, so then your data can be combined with other people who are using that master sample. The first obvious question is, what master samples are being used on the landscape, and which ones are documented in MonitoringResources.org? So to see and understand what master samples are being used, you can go to www.monitoringresources.org. You can go to Explore, and then you can click on Master Samples. Once you've gotten there, it'll take you to the list of available master samples. And this is our master sample library. You can see as of right now, we have 8 master samples documented. Each of these master samples contain a wealth of metadata associated with them, which I'll talk about in a second. But here are the 8 that we have: the Columbia Basin Master Sample, Washington Statewide Master Sample, the BLM Management Low-Tech Master Sample, the BLM Terrestrial Master Sample, the Lower Columbia, Puget Sound, UGA Shoreline, the Dalles Reservoir Master Sample, and the Bonneville Reservoir Master Sample. You can also go in the tool and you can click on each master sample and you can see the extent of the master sample. So for example, I clicked on the Columbia Basin Master Sample and you can see that this is the extent that it covers. Orange line highlights the region by which it covers. And then, so that's one piece of metadata that you might be interested in. So you say, okay, well, I am doing sampling and I'd like to use a master sample that covers my range, but you might need to know a little bit more information about it. We've seen how you can see the full list of master samples being used in landscape, but you want to learn more about a master sample. You're like, okay, well, this covers my range, but what else? What else does it do? Is it covering the resource in a spatial scale that I'm interested in, and so on. So to do that, you can go back to the tool and you'll be on the master sample library page, and then you can click on each individual master sample. So for example, if you clicked on the Columbia Basin Master Sample, you could then see information about it. Also, you can see some information on this page. You can see that it's a linear master sample, meaning that it's created on a linear network. Its source was the EPA. It was created in 2010. And you can see the number of sites and the length of resource it covers. And each of these master samples have that type of high-level metadata associated here. But once you've clicked on the specific master sample, it will take you into full documentation of information about that master sample. So as you get in there, you can start seeing more details. First thing you'll see at the top is a gridded table, and if you look closely at that, this is details of that particular master sample, and it shows the first 100 rows out of whatever master sample you've selected. You can scroll through here and you can see what attributes were associated with each site in the master sample. You can see the specific attributes themselves. You can see information such as lat long and so on. So that is the first place you would go to see details about a master sample. You also can click on this arrow down button to download those first 100 rows if you're interested in getting into them in more detail. Once you understand a little bit more detail about a master sample and you've seen some sort of example of the data, you then might be interested where the master sample came from. Open up each of these individual panels and you can see additional information. So for example, if you opened up the contact and origin information, you would see where this master sample came from. You can see that the contact information is Phil Larson and Tony Olson, and they've built this master sample, and we're now serving it here on Monitoring Resources. So then you know who created the master sample, but you might want even more information. Want to know a description of how that master sample was created. So then if you click on this second panel, description of sample design, you can see additional information. So you can see the target population that it began with. For example, this Columbia Basin Master Sample started off as all streams and river channels within the USGS Hydro Region 17 and portions of Hydro Region 16 and 18, and so on. So then you can see how those sites were selected. This would be really important if you were trying to decide if this master sample would be appropriate to you. And it's powerful to see this information in Monitoring Resources is often we don't know who else has created a master sample or how it was created unless it's documented in this consistent way. So each of those 8 master samples in Monitoring Resources has consistent documentation such as this, so you can make an informed decision. Okay, great. So you've seen some more detail about the description of the master sample. Maybe you want to see what attributes are associated with the master sample. And attributes are really important because they'll support how you divide up the master sample to define your target frame, or how the GRITS algorithm is applied to selecting sites out of the master sample. You can click on this description of sample design output, and you'll see the list of attributes and what they mean and how they're associated with the master sample. You can then click through here and you can see each of these. So for example, you know, we have NHD, reach percent, codes, and so on. So you can see all of these different attributes associated with each point in the master sample. And that becomes powerful when you're trying to define your stratas and your target population in the next step of the tool. So now you know a lot more about the master sample. And you think to yourself, oh, that's great, but I don't know what to do now. I've learned more about the master sample, great. How can I see who's using that master sample? So maybe I can understand who I could collaborate and coordinate with if I wanted to use that master sample. In MonitoringResources.org, if you go to Design and Sample Design, it will take you to a full list of sample designs store on MonitoringResources.org. And each of these sample designs have been created either based on a master sample or a user sample file, which I'll talk about in a second. And if you go in here and you sort on this based on attribute and you select Columbia Basin Master Sample, you can see a full list of users who have created a sample design based on that Columbia Basin Master Sample. And you can see that there's 118 of our 290 sample designs were based on the Columbia Basin Master Sample. So, okay, you're interested in combining information with somebody out there. It might be powerful to know that there are 118 other people that have used this same sample framework to build a design on. And you can then click through each of these designs and understand more about them. Each of these individual lines in this grid cell have detailed documentation of how sites were selected and assigned over spatial and temporal frameworks. You understand who's used it, you understand a bunch of metadata about it, you understand what master samples are available. But what if you want to use it? How do you use MonitoringResources.org to select sites from a master sample using the GRIS algorithm? So what you do to do that is you go to MonitoringResources.org and you log in. If you don't have a login account, you can request an account on this page. There is a video on the MonitoringResources.org video page that would help you understand how to do that. First, you want to request an account, and then you can log in. And once you've logged in, you would go to Design, Sample Designs, which would take you to this full list of design page. And if you click this plus button, you can create your own sample design, and it will take you to this page, which will walk you through the process of creating a sample design. By using this tool, you can then take advantage of the existing master samples if the GRITS approach is the correct approach for your design. That's great, but what if this isn't the correct approach? What if you already have a set of sites that you'd like to sample, but you really want to share them with other people? So we have a different approach for doing that. We've already learned about the master sample approach, but this isn't for you. How do you upload your sites if they're not associated with a master sample? And the second way that we support defining a population in monitoring resources is through the upload of user sample files. Basically, we're saying I'm not interested in using a master sample in the GRIS design type. We've built this other workflow that supports what we call user sample files. And user sample files are files that contain sites that are not drawn from one of the supported master samples, but instead are selected in a different way. For example, they could be non-probabilistic, part of an experimental design, historic, and backing, and so on. But you want to use the tool to create documentation and share your information. There's a couple of different questions that come up once you've decided that you want to do this. So you want to know, how can I upload my shapefile of sample locations? Once I've uploaded my locations, what metadata can I add? And how can I use my shapefile and monitoring resources to document my design? So let's sort of talk about the first one. If you want to upload your shapefile to MonitoringResources.org, again, you need to log in. We talked about that a little bit, so just log into Monitoring Resources, and then you go to Design, User Samples, and once you get there, it will take you to the full list of available user samples. So these are other people have uploaded their shapefile associated with the full population of sites they plan on sampling. So if you want to also upload your shapefile, you would hit Import Sample File here, and it would take you to this screen and walk you through the process of uploading your shapefile. There would then be a series of questions and validations for you to share your information here on MonitoringResources.org. So once you've done that, you want to understand what metadata is available and how you can add metadata to your shapefile. If you open your shapefile, you can see these different basic tabs. There's information on the background. You can add information about the sample frame, how those sites were selected. There's a visual to display a map. There's a list of designs that are built based on your shapefile, and then there's a way to see the schema. So I'm going to just give you some more details about the schema associated with a user sample file. So if you click on the schema tab here, it will open up and it'll show you which attributes are associated with your user sample file. So you can upload a basic file with lat, long, or location data, but then also you can upload some attributes, which these can be really useful in helping you define the spatial and temporal framework of your sites. So dividing your sites into years or spatial categories. So you can see which sites are associated with, or which attributes are associated with each of these sites in your user sample file, or someone else's user sample file if you're interested in theirs. But say that you wanted to edit one of these sites. How would you do that? If you went to the Edit tab, you could then click in each of these rows and you could edit the information associated with each site. So for example, if you uploaded a user sample file and you realize, well, this watershed ID isn't correct anymore, or it was blank And you can come into the Monitoring Resources Edit Site tool, and you can click on each cell and you can edit that information there if you're interested in it. Add columns to this as well. So for example, if you uploaded your basic shapefile with some information about lat long, you can then come in here and you could add the row for watershed, and then you could type in each of those watersheds based on where they were. So it's a pretty powerful tool to edit and add information to an existing file structure. So that's some of the metadata associated with user sample files, which is pretty important because you can also use these user sample files in association with a master sample. So meaning if you decided you wanted to use your master sample, but you already had 10 sites that you knew you were interested in sampling, you could upload those and then you could integrate that into your master sample design. So anyways, we've gotten to the point where how can I upload my shapefile of sample locations? Once I've uploaded my locations, what metadata can I add? Then you ask the question of how can I use my shapefile in Monitoring Resources to document my design? How can I use my user sample file? So again, back to this login thing. Anytime you want to add information to Monitoring Resources or edit information, you need to log in. So you would want to log into MonitoringResources.org, and you want to go to Design, Sample Design. Then you want to click this plus button, and again, it would take you back to this process, the step-by-step process for creating your design. And then you would go through here, and you would answer a series of questions. So we've talked a little bit in detail about using a user sample file and uploading your shapefile and then sharing it. We've also talked in detail about master samples. Why would you do this? Why would you use Monitoring Resources to support sharing this? There are a couple reasons. It has a really great step-by-step process to support site management. You can easily import existing sites. It supports documentation of metadata. It allows you to add attributes and edit existing attributes. So this is a way to do that shared data system so that both you and your colleagues can do this type of functionality on one file, so you're not sending back and forth files to each other. It also has ways to search and learn about other organizations' sample locations. You can go through and you can see who's sampling where, and you can understand, okay, is that something that would be important to me? Could I use that information to improve my sampling framework? You also could think about if you wanted to use their same sites. For example, if someone was collecting a certain type of data and you wanted to collect one more piece of data, you could understand what sites they're sampling at and maybe how you could collect an additional piece of data to add to that data set at those sites. And finally, it has tools to support collaboration of sample location. So again, you know who's sampling where, when, and how. You can understand how you could potentially use those same locations. And then you could go back and you could design your sampling to support integration of information. Like we talked about, this is the defining the population step, full population of where we plan on sampling. So then there's tools to site selection and defining the temporal framework, and we just sort of touched on how you might start using those. And by using these tools in conjunction, you'll get documented temporal and spatial design, consistent documentation. So if we think back to the full MonitoringResources.org suite, you can see that there's other pieces to this. So we've only really touched on one part of documenting a temporal and spatial design. We also have tools for implementing, but I just want to sort of bring this full circle. So once you've used the design tool, you can then go out in the field and implement your sample. So you can take sites you've selected and you can understand what you're going to sample there. And then you can come back and you can report back to MonitoringResources.org the specific dates and some specifics about your sampling, what methods you ended up applying, some implementation notes, and so on. And by doing that, your sites then will show up in the Monitoring Explorer map viewer. And what the Monitoring Explorer map viewer is it's an online centralized map viewer that shows multiple program sites on the same map. You can go in here and you can see who has sampled, what data is available at those sites, when they were sampled, and so on. So this is the realized results of sampling. And what I'd like to be clear about is that this is a discovery tool that shows the locations, date, protocol, and design associated with each site, but it does not have the data. If you're interested in data, there's links to data repositories associated with each of these sites. So you could go in here, you can understand where that data exists, how to find it, and if you want to use it, you could contact the actual person who has the data or visit that data repository. So by using this suite of tools together, we can get to this point where we see multiple programs on one map. And by doing this, it will result in easier data discovery. Right now, people are documenting information in their own information management systems, on their own, desktops, or in their own data repositories, or so on. But by building this map in one centralized location, in one centralized system, to see each location where data has been collected, users can come in here and they can start seeing across programs, jurisdictional boundaries, regional boundaries, who's collecting what, where, when, and how. And then by promoting easier data discovery, we can then hopefully promote more high-level, seamless analysis of resources across landscapes. So all of this, every single piece of this, the outputs and results depend on people. Right now, we have multiple published protocols and methods. We have a lot of different designs from different people. We have 6 programs, sample locations in the Monitoring Explorer, and so on. So if this is something that you're interested in and you think would be powerful and support your program and your data management, I would encourage you to take a look at Monitoring Resources to understand a little bit more in detail what's there. And then if you're interested in using it, contact us here at PNAMP.org to ask any more specific questions, request a training, or just sort of talk about the tools that are available. So all of this sort of depends on people, and the long-term goal of all of this and creating the standard documentation is to promote integration of systems to increase the automatic flow of data. We want to be able to share information between different people, jurisdictions, and so on. Again, we want to share information and systems with others. So Monitoring Resources is available. You can go there now. You could start using it as is if it fit your needs. We also want to build infrastructure for coordination and collaboration of monitoring data. We want to promote the idea that we can use other people's information. We can share what we've done. We can share known work, and we can start building a bigger system of information to then easily streamline the deliverable of information to people making decisions. So the idea, again, that all of us coming together, using other people's information, can then lift the whole community up so we can easily make information available to decision makers.